All right, so we're coming to you from Charlotte, British Vihara, and I'm Ayya Sudhamma. This is Ayya Suvijjana. And in the meditation, I had you following the feeling tone as you were breathing. So let's go back to that. You can close your eyes again, just get moderately comfortable. So you're breathing in, you're breathing out. And the instructions I gave earlier were, if you have any unpleasant feelings, tell yourself they're boring for this purpose. Could you find any neutral feelings? And could you find any pleasant feelings? So whether we're talking about your whole body, or whether we're talking about specifically a bit of breath touching a tip of a nostril, whatever it is, can you know whatever is pleasant as you sit here breathing? I may have shifted the instructions slightly there, so just go with that. So there are three kinds of feeling tone, Vedana. Some call them sensations. The three kinds, there is the pleasantness, the unpleasantness, the neutral. They're not steady and stable. Any of them can shift into another feeling tone. You're watching some particular aspect of experience. There's no reason why it wouldn't be able to, the next moment would not come with a different feeling tone, even though you're watching the same phenomena. It just can happen. That's fine. Okay. So here we are. You've got this body situation, got this mind situation, you've got something that you might consider a life situation. And moment to moment, day by day, you're just swimming in all kinds of experiences that are pleasant or unpleasant or neutral. But we're not paying attention to that normally. What we're paying attention to is, that's good, that's bad. I want this, I don't want that. So that's not the raw experience. That's not the raw data. That's reactivity. So we're actually dwelling in our reactivity. Maybe it's just me. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't speak for you. A lot of us spend a lot of time dwelling in our reactivity. So whatever it is that is agreeable, likable, well, okay, that's the good stuff. I want more of that. Whatever is the disagreeable, I've got an eye on it because that's not good. I got to, pay attention to that, keep it away from me. And neutral just gets lost in the shuffle. It's the middle child. The one that gets neglected. Now, some of you may have heard me say here a number of times that the vast majority of our experiences are neutral. But we don't have all that reactivity to neutral. That's the very nature of neutral, is the non-reactivity to it, because it's not having the underlying tendency towards liking and not having the underlying tendency towards disliking. It has the underlying tendency towards, yeah, it's just me. I got it like this, just this kind of establishment of a sense of a self, but there's nothing exciting about it. It just is taking up all the space that's not the interesting stuff. It's the land of boredom. And yet it is the vast majority of our experiences. And I've given this simile a number of times. So bear with me if you've heard it many times. But I used to live on the West Coast, but I was raised on the East Coast. Now I'm back on the East Coast, but I have friends on the West Coast. And for a while I went to law school on the East Coast while I had my loyalties on the West Coast. So I have done back and forth across the USA, 3 time zones, 3,000 miles. I stopped counting at 35, like many, 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 and that was many years ago. So many, many times, back and forth. And one day I heard someone arrogantly refer to all the land that's not in between, that lies in between the two coasts that I spend all my time on, California coast and East Coast. All the land in between is flyover land. Land that has no value except it's just what you have to fly over to get to the coast. That is the interesting part. Very arrogant, but I thought very funny. That was kind of illustrating my own life. And our lives have a lot of flyover land, which is the boredom part, the neutral part. So one coast is the pleasantness, the other coast is the unpleasantness, and we can argue all day on which coast is which. But one coast is very fascinating for one reason, the other coast is very fascinating for another reason. And then you have all this land you have to endure to get, in between them. It's not exactly the layout of the three kinds of feeling, and it's certainly not straight from the scripture. Air flights across long distances just weren't really much of a thing back then. But I like the illustration because we do tend to dismiss, if you're a coastal sort of person, you tend to dismiss the wealth and riches and interesting qualities of the Grand Canyon is down there. All these areas. I'm sure lots of really wonderful people.
Cascade Mountains.
And a lot of cats and Cascade Mountains and the Appalachia even. There's a lot going on there, but when we're just not tuned in, we just endure the neutral and fixate on our reactivity, actually, not even on the bare data of the pleasant and unpleasant, but on our reactivity, our liking and our disliking. Those are the hot spots. Those are the fascinating things for our minds generally. Again, I cannot speak for you. Okay, but what if we were to pay more attention? What if we were to pay more attention to the bare data and not our reactivity? Think about how much of our lives are built up on the reactivity to what's pleasant and our reactivity to what is unpleasant. Now, I have a basic default set of this personality in this life of aversion. I am more fascinated with the unlikable. I am more fascinated with the, I don't like it, get away from me. And there are other people who might be more fascinated with the liking. And so we're a little different that way. One person will see the beautiful cake and think, oh, how delicious, and I'll notice the fly that got too close. Like that's just us, that's who some of us are. But whether we're more fascinated with our stories and built up ideas on our ill will, on our reactivity to unpleasant, or whether we're more building up on our reactivity to pleasantness, the bottom line is that we're not really here and now. We're focusing in on our reactions as though this is the reality, this is the truth, this is the real thing. We're enduring all of those unbearable, boring spots in which we just build up more sense of self. And we're kind of at war, actually, with our lives, with our realities. There's not really peace here because, again, we're not paying attention to the bare data. And so what it is that we like is extremely important. What it is that we don't like is extremely important. And that boring stuff needs to go. And if we can step back to see the reality, this is pleasant, and just drop all of this, I like it, it's good, give me that that's mine. Get your hands off of it. And the same with the versa. And we can step back from all the huge storylines that we've been weaving out of these three. You know, you need three to make a braid, right? At least three, like you braid. So we have all three, pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. We're braiding these storylines of this is who I am. Out of the three, I just made that. You know, out of these three feelings towards which we are being reactive. My home, my spouse, my cat. The cat doesn't know itself as my cat. The cat knows itself as the master of the home. My cat, my books. Don't you drop my book. You know, my career. My boss disapproved of such and such, and I'm despondent now. My boss approved of such and such, and I am elated now. The neighbor said this to me, and I am angry now. The neighbor said this to me, and I'm so grateful. Like braiding and braiding this whole world into being. And the behind the scenes happenings are this wild ride of pleasant, unpleasant, neutral, not necessarily in that order. On and on, pleasant, 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 averse, unpleasant, unpleasant, pleasant, pleasant. It just goes on and on. I did a little workshop. It was on communication, actually, I think, but at a kind of a retreat, a Western Buddhist monastic gathering at Deer Park long ago, and we were paired off. And so everybody, I was sitting facing a Tibetan ordained nun, and we were told to speak out loud, noticing pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. And when she did it, she's like, pleasant, pleasant, unpleasant. When I did it, unpleasant, pleasant, neutral, neutral, unpleasant, unpleasant, neutral, unpleasant. Like, she's like, you're actually noticing all that? Yeah. Because this is a practice that we're taught. So in Theravada, so yeah, I'd been doing it for years and years, not as consistently as I might have done to get better, you know, more long-lasting results, but it's something that I'd been dabbling in for many, many years already. It was a new idea to her. So what if you could catch every single mind moment's quality? You know, when we just sit down and try to do something like this, our minds are like trying to use a table knife to cut something tough. But when we've sat a while and gotten our focus much more clear, then the mind becomes like a sushi knife, really, really sharp. And then instead of seeing general trends, we can see more right down towards individual mind moments, just see right down into there, like, whoa, this is what's really happening on this extremely minute level. The mind is capable of that, but not in our ordinary day-to-day state. It takes some really opportunities for meditation to sharpen that mind with its by letting go of all kinds of hindrances all the time. You know, like just ease into a more meditative state, and the mind gets so sensitive, so sharp and clear, that then that kind of exploration is like the difference in looking at the moon or looking at a distant object in nature with the bare eyes versus binoculars versus telescope. You know, when we sit a few minutes and really look at it, it's getting a little more like binoculars. And when we are doing this on in a meditation retreat setting, then it's like, you know, telescope, like really go zoom in and see the very subtle, very minute changes, as though you're seeing it in slow motion. The mind gets able to discern things so much more clearly, slowing it down, just really looking into it. So the benefit of paying attention to this can be almost immediate of not being quite so enamored with our dramas, remembering that we have braided our experience into stories, into who I am, into identity, into duties, into all sorts of things that may be exhilarating, may be disturbing, may be horrifying, may be delightful, may be reassuring, et cetera, et cetera. So when we get into the weeds, when we get into very uncomfortable places, to remember that a lot of what's happening is actually just this pleasant, unpleasant, neutral business out of which this is braided. It can give us a little bit of distance right off the top, I think, from things that are overwhelming and hurtful. You could say, well, this is an overwhelming, hurtful situation, but actually, what's really going on right now? Body on the chair, neutral.
Painful.
Or I'm sorry, for some people, the body on the chair is painful. What kind of chair you're sitting on? You need a cushion. You really do need a cushion, but that chair is impossible. It's a horrible chair. Get some better cushioning there. Seriously. Like, I invite you, get some better cushioning. That's not too bad actually there, but whatever you need to make it a less painful experience, go for it. So that's an immediate effect. I think this kind of a reflection and study has the potential to undermine the whole thing. Now, remember the links of dependent origination? So we go over this every now and then. So what is the first link that we refer to?
Somebody knows.
Rosalinda wrote ignorance. Thank you so much. That's right. And then Avijja and see, she's Suvijja.
That's good.
Suvijja. So I'm
Good.
Dhamma. So I'm the good Dharma, the good Dhamma, hopefully, sometimes. And this is the Suvijja. So she is the good wisdom. But dependent origination starts off with her not having good wisdom, actually.
No, it's the
But not just her, all of us.
the Avijja, which means it's lacking the wisdom that I have.
All right, so it starts with the ignorance from the past life, leading to what Bhante Sujata is now translating as choices, the Sanghara. Not contented with that translation, but karma formations, mental formations of the past life, volitional formations, leading to that consciousness. I think it's Abhidhamma rather than scripture, but I really appreciate the imagery of the relinking the consciousness from the last moment of consciousness at the previous body into the womb of the current body, relinking, and you've got your consciousness. Because of consciousness, you have nama rupa, energy gathering of mind and matter. Because of that, then you have the sixfold base, six sense bases, eye, ear, nose, tongue, plus all the rest of the body as a separate, calculated as a separate base, and mind, eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind. And then because of that, when you have the consciousness together with, when you have anything, it gets kind of whacked by the environment. You put an arm out of your window, eventually, of your car, eventually it gets whacked, right? Because you have a physical manifestation, there are parts of the body to get whacked or sense stimulated, like light and color at the eye, sound waves hitting the ear. So we have these sense stimulations, we get whacked, but the whacking is happening all the time. Your consciousness isn't present for all of the whacking, all of the sense stimulation. For example, think about how you could be reading a book and you're absorbed, and then you hear a dog and you look over there to see what the dog is doing. So you were absorbed and you had, your consciousness was at the eye, picking up the print, and also in your thinking, in your mind, picking up the storyline. Then your consciousness adverted to your ear because of the dog barking. And then you turned your, the attention of you, turned your eyes to see whatever's going on over there. So your consciousness is now at the eyes, looking over that way, color, light, whatever you can, sense stimulation you could take there. Meanwhile, your bum has been on the chair the whole time, but you didn't know it. Because your consciousness wasn't there. So there's a lot going on all the time that we're not taking in. Who wants to give a guess? Maybe 99.9999% of our experience of sense impingements, it isn't something that we take in as part of our life story because the consciousness wasn't there. So wherever it was that your conscissness met together with a sense base and sense impingement, impinging. Does everybody know the word impinging? Not everybody has English as a first language here. Impinging, like a touching or a.
It's more like an intrusion.
Intrusion, yeah, like an intrusion or a touching.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, it's contact, but it's more.
It's a word that doesn't necessarily mean a great contact. It's just a contact that's sort of like, it's happening.
Impingement has kind of a negative.
It does.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like more like it'd be grabbing you rather than touching you gently or something like that.
Yeah, impingement could also mean like someone's wasting your time and you feel like that was an impingement on you. Or that's a kind of another way that that word might be used. Maybe shift off of that word. So I'll just say sense stimulation. That makes sense to everybody.
Contact.
So you've got so you've got consciousness together with a sense base and the sense stimulation. Then officially that is contact. So there's an awful lot going on that you're not connecting with at all. Your consciousness isn't there. There's a marvelous test of this where on the internet, a video of people playing basketball, and you're supposed to say what you see happening there. And but they give you a little task like to count how many baskets or something like that. If you do that, because your attention is doing that task, you miss something else completely going on that court. And then they tell you, okay, now watch for XYZ, because you're going, that did not happen. They say, now watch for it. And when you watch it again, you go, wait, no, that's not the same one. So then you have to reverse the whole tape to see that is what was happening the entire time, but your attention wasn't there. If your attention isn't, if contact isn't there, it didn't happen for you. It just didn't. So where you have official contact, what happens next? What's the next link on dependent origination? So you had consciousness, sixfold, nama rupa, salayatana, sixfold base, contact, pahaso. Next. Exactly, Adriana. Good job. The Vedana, the feeling. Feeling happens next. Do you know the next one in dependent origination? Now, feeling. What is the feeling? This is the very same feeling that we've been talking about this whole thing of the pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. So it's sukha, dukkha, and a dukkhama sukha. The pleasant, unpleasant, and neither pleasant nor unpleasant, which I'm so glad we have one word for that. I feel so sorry for everybody who has a language that they work with that doesn't have Buddhist person who doesn't have the word neutral. 2 words instead of neither, let's say, a dukkhama sukha instead of 6 syllables. Anyway.
You just say it quickly, that's all.
Huh?
You say it quickly.
A dukkhama sukha?
Yeah,
I guess so. What's next after Vedana? Pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. What's next are the dependent origination.
It's the big one.
Yes, exactly, Satira. It is the craving. Tanha. Oh, wait, how did this happen? So all this time we're going through this very organic, like making you a being, for this life again, right? Like you had your ignorance in the background from the previous life. You have your sankara, karma formations in the background from past life. Then bing, consciousness is happening in that womb, going, or as a deva or whatever. You're here, ta-da, you're here. Consciousness, mind and matter, and amarupa, salayata, the sixfold base, eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind. Of course, you've got it there. It's going to get whacked. So then you have contact, paso. Again, remember what that is. That's any of your six bases having a sense, not impingement, what we decide on, sensation, having a touch at the eye or the ear or the nose or the tongue or the body or the mind, together with consciousness present. So we have haso and the contact. Then we have Vedana, pleasant or unpleasant or neutral. And the very next one in the link is tanha, craving. Why? Because every single moment we're being inundated with these experiences at contact of the Vedana of pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral. And the pleasant is that's the one that it is pleasant because it is that which has the underlying tendency towards desire. In other words, what's pleasant for you may not be pleasant for you, this other person. What's pleasant for you on a Tuesday may not be pleasant for you on a Friday. Think of your most favorite dessert. And imagine that you went to a party and you got some of it, and you went to another party and they gave you a ton of it, like it's your birthday and you're going around to parties, or it's Christmas or something and you're going around to parties and you keep getting the same thing and you have it until you're sick of it. And the next day, your grandmother goes, I know you just love this dish so much, and she gives it to you. And you were just vomiting yesterday because you ate too much of it. What? And it's grandmother. And she made it special for you. And she's going on and on about how she's made it special for you. You have to sit down. And you're starting to drool, like you're trying to hold your stomach, right? Like not happy drool, like that drool of you're trying to hold your stomach from vomiting. Okay, it's the same stuff that the previous day, the sight of it was pleasant. The sound of the word of it was pleasant. The thought of it was pleasant. Like I keep going back to impingement. Every touch at every sense base, every experience at every sense base regarding it, the smell of it, pleasant, the taste of it, pleasant, the texture of it, pleasant in your mouth, and the swallowing, your physical experience of it was pleasant. And you're ruminating on it before, during, and after was pleasant. But the one grandma just got you, the sight of it, unpleasant. The word, when she said it, unpleasant. The smell of it, the taste of it, the feel of it in your mouth, the swallowing of it, the reflection on it, like every aspect of this thing is shifted to unpleasant. So it's not that there's some rule book out there that says everything that's like this and that is pleasant. Everything like this and that is unpleasant. And everything that's like this, that, and the other is neutral. There's no rule book. It's this whole setup of your mind-body experiences telling you that this is what it's going to be, pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. And okay, so you have this experience, pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. And when it's pleasant, you want more. When it's unpleasant, you want to run away from it. When it's neutral, you're either just different. You want something different, or you're bored, or you're just self-satisfied. But we keep interacting with our environment, with our world on that distanced level. We're not there at the raw data, pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. We're at the reactivity of liking, disliking, and half asleep at the wheel. Asleep at the wheel, is that an Americanism, or is that intelligible everywhere? It makes sense anyway, right? All right. This is the fuel of samsara. This is the fuel of misery. This is the fuel of rebirth. This is the fuel of drama. This is, okay, so we have our tanha, our desire come up. Then the next link in the dependent origination is, this goes from tanha to upadana, which is sort of like if you had something that dried and turned into crystal, like if you had glue and you let it set and then it's hardened. If you have a certain kind of glue, it could be like really, really hard. Or you have pottery and it's moist and then it's soft, but then it hardens. I see it as like a crystallization or a hardening of the desire. Upadana, clinging. So tanha, upadana, and then the next one is bhava, right? So the next link, independent origination, and these are links like chains holding us into misery. So too dramatic. We're not supposed to laugh at that point. Something went wrong there.
No, I'm just, it's just a good metaphor.
Oh, good. Okay.
I respond if I'm laughing.
Okay. So there's this next link, the next chain link. So there was tanha. There's tanha, that hardening, upadana. The next one is bhava, existence or becoming. So it's like it's like you fell into the water, and this is where you actually go over the waterfall. Like this, you're in becoming. So moment to moment to moment. So you go into becoming, and nothing's really different in your life day to day when you get to the becoming part. But if we're talking about, okay, you just died, and then it just runs out to the end of the dependent origination list, the next one is rebirth. So we have tanha, craving, upadana, hardening of craving, clinging, bhava, so you're in that energy of becoming, jati, birth. So this is where we shift from this body has given out, we shift over to the next body. We're in rebirth. And what happens next? The whole next life with its sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, despair. Because we've carried over the ignorance and the sankhara, like it's just carry it over to the next life. So moment by moment, that seed of the next life is just, it's there. And then you die and it plants. You go on, you're not finishing off anything. Because we are not arahants. We're going to grab another body of some sort at the finishing of this body. It has to be so, because we have the ignorance, we have the karma formations, we have the that consciousness is going to go being into that next life, jati, going to happen. So dependent origination, as I understand it, is taught across 3 lifetimes. There are other people who like to present it all as happening completely in one moment, and I'm sure they're on it, true in that sense. But I think the way the Buddha was teaching it was across the 3 lifetimes for the sake of liberation. So if once the ignorance is there from the past life, the karma formations have to be there. Once the karma formations are there, the consciousness has to be there. When the consciousness is there, the namarupa has to be there, and so on with each link of dependent origination. It all has to happen except one, What is the link? No spoilers. What is the link that's not inevitable in this whole list of the 12 links of dependent origination? All of them inevitably follow one after the other, except one. One link. So did you guys ever take construction paper in elementary school? And you get a strip of it and you glue it, and you get another little strip of it and you glue it, and you get a little chain. That's the image that kept coming to my mind when I was making these little chains with my hands, thinking about each link of dependent origination. Every one of these chains is made out of iron, except for one, which is made out of paper. There's one paper link in this whole thing.
Weak link.
One weak link in this whole thing. What is it? I've hinted at it. All right, who just wrote that? Craving. Tanha. Yeah. Thank you, Adriana. That's the paper link out of all these iron links. The paper one is the one between the contact and, I'm sorry, I beg your pardon, thank you, the Vedana and Tanha. That's the paper link, and that's the only one that's paper. The rest are made out of a material that cannot be broken, as I understand it. So there's the paper link between the pleasant, unpleasant, neutral, and the desire arising. So we do all kinds of practices as Buddhist practitioners to calm our minds and overcome hindrances, become better people, overcome our anger. And then, sit in meditation, try to see truth. I think this business of looking at pleasant, unpleasant, neutral, instead of just bouncing around, interacting with our reactivity to each of these, might be a bit of a shortcut. I could be wrong, but I think it might be a little bit of a shortcut, because that's the paper link. And if that is the paper link, that would suggest that we might want to, moment by moment, where we notice the braid has gotten really outrageous, burdensome, choking, say, wait a minute, unbraid that braid. What was the braid made up of? Well, that was bad and that was good and that was boring. Okay, well, so bad, good, and boring got braided into this whole drama where I made someone mad at me. So where, or I got angry with them, or whatever happened. So, go unravel it. You're in the moment. You're in a difficult situation in the moment. Your mind is agitated. Your heart is pounding. Unravel. Okay, so there was pleasant, there was liking and disliking. Oh yeah, liking. I liked it. So it wasn't that it was good. It was that I liked something there. Right. It was, I liked this and I didn't like that. It wasn't that it's inherently bad. It was that I didn't like it. I mean, I have moral indignation over it, but let's get back to, sense basis. Eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind. What actually happened was something that was unpleasant at my mind. See, we're not trying to fix the world. We're trying to fix us. Then we'll know how to fix the world better when we fix us a bit more. Go ahead and be fixing the world as much as you like on the side, but that's your hobby. Your job is enlightenment, my opinion. So, okay, so there was something unpleasant at the mind and so forth. Okay, right. Wait. So it's not that it's good and bad, and it's not that I like and dislike. It's that there was pleasant and unpleasant. Kaboom. Wow. It's always a surprise, at least to me. Because you have the whole story, the castles in the sky, the whole thing is all built up and it's irrefutable. I'm a former lawyer. I can make every argument. It is irrefutable. It is this. Well, actually, so that there was a lot of liking and disliking. Yeah, but okay. But then underneath that is pleasant. It wasn't good and bad. It was liking and disliking. It was pleasant and unpleasant. Oh, it's always a surprise for me when I unravel all the way back down to the bare data. Oh yeah, pleasant, unpleasant. But it's supposed to. But it's. Well, it's unpleasant, unpleasant, neutral. I mean, I'm not going to fix their enlightenment. I'm not going to get them enlightened. I'm not going to get the world enlightened. But if I can fix this little corner of the world, what a joy. And I can keep going back to noticing pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral instead of being wrapped up in all those stories that go off and off, braiding and weaving, creating all kinds of drama and stuff. Back to the the nitty gritty of what's actually happening right here and now. That's really helpful. Another angle to this that's very helpful. In meditation, we become more interested and patient with neutrality. Because when we're overly sensitized to our reactions to the pleasant and unpleasant, or even just the bare data of the pleasant and unpleasant, we're unstable. And I came up with the metaphor of having a little boat parked at the lake, and you have a dozen kids hanging on one side, or a dozen kids hanging on the other side. It can flip. It can be really extremely unstable. But if you put a lot of sandbags right in the middle, you have ballast. Ballast is something that keeps a boat from going whee, rocking too much in the waves. Sometimes they put water inside the bottom of a boat for ballast, don't they? Am I making that up?
No.
So if you have ballast, something that sits in the middle, that is not the one side, not the other side, if you have the ability to be patient and stay conscious of experiences that are in the neutral realm, instead of pouncing on the pleasant, pouncing on the unpleasant, but have a lot of time and interest invested in neutral experiences, such as touch of the breath. It tends to be pretty neutral. Then you have ballast in life. So if you could just be okay with your own self sitting around doing nothing, with the neutral qualities of what's happening, you don't feel like you're dying, don't feel like you're oppressed, because you can just be with neutral out of probably a lot of meditation experience, so that your mind can feed on the neutral. You feel okay in the neutral. Then when something happens that's very provocative, of liking and disliking, pleasant or unpleasant, then we don't have to get so reactive to it, because we have a whole wealth of life happening moment to moment to moment that has nothing to do with the high points of pleasant and unpleasant. The mind, remember, it doesn't exist for us if consciousness doesn't go there. And so by turning our consciousness again and again and again to what's neutral, we can be with neutral easily and a lot. And we're not so addicted and fascinated, obsessed with pouncing on something that's pleasant or unpleasant and having all of the storylines built up out of those. We don't feel like I'm a self that's going to die when we're hanging out with something that's not so provocative. It is very, very neutral, bland. I mean, can you eat your oatmeal unseasoned? Is that doable for you? Could you try it and just notice the kind of neutral taste? Can you just sit and do nothing for a little while? Not trying to force your mind to be doing this or that, but just like be with the boredom and find some interest in something that's so boring. Get more friendly with the neutral, with the fly over land, so that the provocations of life are not something that trigger everything in us. We can still be with the neutral, even while something really scary is happening. We'd still be with imagine that somebody comes up with a knife and you can still feel your butt on the chair. You're not reacting the way they're expecting. Someone comes in with your favorite dessert and you still throw your butt on the chair. You're still with neutral because you're not so obsessed with the pleasant or the unpleasant. I think we can get a lot of, I think we can get a lot more calm in our lives just from that, just from that. And I think the insights that we gain of how we don't have to zip into the liking just because it's delightfully pleasant. We don't have to zip into the disliking just because it's really not pleasant. There's a lot that's really not pleasant, even for an arhat, just still not pleasant. I'm sorry, it was probably bad news for everybody. The enlightened ones still had unpleasantness. They just didn't react to it. Bad news, sorry. Past tense, because we don't have any fully enlightened ones here that I'm aware of, but so I'm talking about ones in scripture, but I'm sure present tense as well.
Can I say something?
Please, of course.
Yeah. I think there is the key to the fact of paying attention to the fact that it's always changing. And then I notice for myself too, when if I see myself really suffering, upset, unhappy about something, then sometimes I'll that tracing back and going, and pleasantness at the mind door. Or I would say, this is dukkha. This is and really experience the dukkha. And then it's just seeing it, it's just this flow. So then we are able to let go of it. But I think we, like crystallization, like you're saying with the upadana, what happens is that this is me, this is my suffering, this is my drama, this is what makes me feel alive.
And it's very important.
It's important. Yeah, this is, why do people watch soap operas and things like this? Is real. This is real life. So all the drama and stuff like that. So, but if we just see it as this flux, okay, unpleasant sensation at the mind door was the memory of what my best friend said to me that was hurtful. And therefore, this is like this big drama, and I'm like kind of really actually feeding on this unpleasantness. And this is what makes me real. This is it's a kind of, actually, it's at the becoming and the birth, that crystallization with the upadana. It's just like the slide leading out of the womb into the dukkha. So just seeing the flux and being able to let go and going, oh, okay, this is the sensation of dukkha, and this is the passing of it. This is the arising and passing of it. And then it becomes neutral, possibly, or you create more suffering for yourself. I don't know. But yeah, the mind door is where we create, where the dukkha actually is most active.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's it. It's just because we might feel physical pain or physical pleasure or any of the sense gates, but it's the mind is where it all crystallizes.
Now, a caveat to all this is that some people have a depressive tendency or a little bit of instability in their minds and their lives. And I think if somebody has a depressive tendency, to break down pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral is beneficial on the unpleasant, but not so beneficial on the pleasant. Go ahead and allow yourself to be in your spin out with the pleasantness, and just focus in on finding the reality regarding the unpleasantness, because the mind might trick you into only dismantling causes of uplift by noticing, the underlying pleasantness, And so you might dismantle all your storylines that would make you less miserable, and then just fall off a cliff into misery and depression. So be very careful about that. If you're going to go dismantling all the storylines, just dismantle the unhappy ones and leave intact all the happy ones until you're in a less depressive state, and then you have that stability, and then you can dismantle all of it. And so that said, if you're at a stable place and you can just really dismantle all this, and if you're not, do this, la, 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 la. But if you're in a very stable place, that it would be good for you to play with this, really dismantle, kind of go with this. The Buddha talked about mastery of the feelings. I don't know where, maybe a sutta hunter can track this down for us. The mastery is when you can substitute at will. Remember I said how your favorite dessert could turn into something really horrible after you overate? You can do that process here and now at will, at an instant. The way you would do it, again, if you're kind of not as stable with it and maybe in a depressive state, do this, la, la, la. This is the postgraduate school work. This is not the high school or college work. This is the postgraduate work. That what can be done is to, let's say you take a bite of your favorite dessert and you notice pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. If you zero in on the experiences that have a little bit of unpleasantness to them, suddenly you'll realize that the texture was never all that good. There's that, ooh, yikes. Or you might notice that the flavor has this weird little something at the end of your out breath. It's like, actually, that's not all that good. Like you can ruin it for yourself. Or you can take something that you never could stand, like pickled beets. That one comes to mind pretty quick. As something perhaps you never could stand. Next time I had pickled beets, see, I just ignored the texture, but any of us could actually zero in on that texture until we find some hidden little gem of pleasantness in it, and focus on that until that is what you're associating with the texture. You can manipulate pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral to being other than what they naturally had been for you. And then what does that do to liking, disliking, and being asleep at the wheel? What does that do to the braiding of our stories? It wrecks samsara a bit right there. Again, that's postgraduate work that is not to be done if you have a depressive tendency, because your mind will trick you and start dismantling the things that keep you afloat. So don't do that. You need your uplift. You need to stay afloat. So be very careful. Not every teaching is suitable for everybody at a given moment. Okay, what was that? Rosalinda is going to try that out with rice. What's wrong with rice? All right. Any thoughts, sister? Anything you want to add? You've been quiet for a bit.
So with trying the food and looking at pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral, trying, let's say, with something that you do like, for me, it was interesting to see how the pleasant feeling was there, but also how that was neutral. It wasn't as exciting as I had it before the experience. And the same thing with something that I don't like, trying that, like, what is that that you don't like, or what is that is very unpleasant? And I was surprised to see that it wasn't that unpleasant. I guess that's kind of like your story of the pickle beets. But I was just surprised with that, actually. With
a really important point, and I'm so glad you brought that out. Thank you. You know what it reminds me of? Have you ever looked at a fire map? When you pull up a fire map, if you're looking at the entire country, it looks like the entire country is on fire. And then you zero in and you see, well, actually, it's just California that's on fire. And then you zero in some more and you see that it's not all of California. It's just, Southern California and part of Northern California that's on fire. And then you zero in, you make it larger again. It's not all of Northern California. It's actually, all of the Ukiah area, whatever. And like you zero in, and you end up finding it's a brush fire behind a house or something. Like it's like, but when you had the map very concentrated, looking at it from a distance, then all you can see are these huge highlights. It really looks like the entire country is just boiling, burning, really wrecked. And I think when we fail to appreciate and become conscious of neutral experiences, then the pleasant and unpleasant seem to be everything. The pleasant or the unpleasant is like that symbol of the fire covering the entire state. You've tasted one tiny little bit of unpleasantness. I hate that dish. Well, 99.9% of the experience of that dish would actually be neutral if you were to really hang in there with it and find out what it actually is. Or the same thing with the dish that you love so much. Most of it's going to be neutral if you just hang in there and really see it. And yeah, what were you going to say now?
Well, the metaphor of the fire map is that you look and actually where the fire is burning on the map, it looks like this whole area is totally destroyed. And then you go and if you actually walk into the area, it's like there's areas that were
So you're not even
over.
saying on the internet, you're saying in person.
You go there. Yeah, I've had the experience, exactly what you're talking about with the food. It seems like the whole thing is destroyed, but there's trees that are singed, trees that are completely burnt, areas that are completely untouched. And so, yeah, so we gloss the whole thing over as the whole thing is horrible.
Thank you.
So the getting in the closer with the really, that insight practice of looking really deeply, it's like getting on, not just looking at a map, but actually going to the place and seeing what's actually there.
Okay. So this is not a great example of it, but I just pulled up on my phone while she was talking. You can see here that California is
On fire.
it's burning right now.
Oh dear.
Okay, you see how it's hard. It's very small. I've made the whole map very small, so it's kind of hard to see. But that's California is burning. But if I scroll it out, you can see that it's actually a certain chunk of California that's burning.
Oh dear.
It's not bad, actually.
Oh, it's Oregon.
Okay, it's Oregon. It's not California. It's Oregon that's burning, actually.
Oh dear.
Two spot fires in Oregon.
A lot of it's not burning at all. You can't even, once you get so close and you don't even see where the fire is.
But you get down to the places where you can see the roads, you can barely find the fire.
Mm-hmm.
Did it even show up there again? Yeah, it's like a teeny piece of a neighborhood.
Wow.
So that's what I'm talking about. Like, so if we're not paying attention to neutral, if our minds are not attuned and in favor of in favor, but aligned with neutral, consciousness is not going to grab up neutral for you because you haven't told it to, again and again and again in the past, that it's going to be like a fire map when you open the door and you see that person you were trying to avoid. It's going to be alarm, 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 as opposed to still being with a lot of neutral feelings and the fact that there's a little bit of negativity, little tiny bit of negativity towards that person. Is that making sense?
Mm-hmm.
Great.
But it did look like the whole.
It looked like California is gone. It turns out to be a little tiny brush fire in Oregon.
There's two active fires.
Yeah, two smaller fires. I mean, not to dismiss them. I'm sure it's very, very serious for the people involved in it, and I wish them well. In fact, we can dedicate the merits of this gathering right here and now to the people at this moment who are concerned about those two fires in Oregon, and may they be safe, may they fight them well, may the conditions cooperate for overcoming those fires. May the fires of greed, hate, delusion be overcome in us, and may the fires at those two places that we just noticed in Oregon be overcome easily and quickly with no further damage to any beings or their properties. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.